What a way to end this Mythical League regular season. Welcome back to your usual Thursday action here over at Risen Esports. It is week 5 of the Mythical League, the final week in what is a short regular season where we're going to figure out, myself and Hummus here, if who is going to be in the playoffs. Because boy, is this Group B just absolute chaos at the bottom. 3 teams are 1-3 currently sitting right now, and you have the Scrab Squad, Crab Radiant sitting at 2-2. So
Yep.
basically, if U of M, Miss JV get this win, they get in off head-to-head. Crab win, they're also comfortably into the playoffs. There's a lot at stakes here. This is basically a playoff matchup, Hummus.
It pretty much is. You mentioned the 3 teams at 1-3. We do have the option, depending on how things go tonight, both on this game and on the others, for 4 teams to end up at that 2-3 mark to end the regular season.
Oof.
If we get there, we'll talk about it at that point. But for right now, I want to turn our attention over to draft because they're not wasting any time.
No.
We've got Crabs Radiant over on blue and the University of Michigan JV over on red. And with the Nocturne getting hovered, we're going to have our first round of bans already done over here, Slayer.
Yeah, so we're still on, well, we're firing through. I don't even get to make my patch points. 14-20, not much has really changed, I feel like, meta-wise. We're still living in the world. I had it cited to me, the top 5 champions with win rates in the bottom lane right now are it's Seraphine, Brand, Lux, AP Kog'Maw. That's how gross it is down there. The 180 carry that still holds up well is Ashe. So you leave that one up. That's a really clear, obvious B1. So good turn there. Interestingly enough, the Aurora is also a champion that a lot of people love to just pick right off the bat, and that will be the response for those Wolverines.
I mean, meta hasn't changed much because, we're in the thick of Worlds, and everybody knows Riot loves Worlds and doesn't want to mess up Worlds meta and all that. Ashe, Aurora, both super common there. Ashe, obviously been around for forever. Everybody knows the Enchanted Crystal era. That's what we're going to be looking at. On the UMJV side, Aurora, we're going to be looking for that lockdown that Between Worlds can offer. Aurora, the newest champion in the League of Legends champion pool, but by far not the worst. Also pulling out the Skarner, and Woohoo in the jungle for UMGV has been playing a lot of Skarner. And I gotta say, the last couple games aren't looking too good for him on it.
Which is interesting, because I would certainly wager Skarner is the top of the line right now in the jungle. So much you could do with the Skarner. I guess we are actually playing with Skarner nerfs. So maybe you mentioned it. I'm still stuck in Worlds mode where Skarner is just completely overpowered. In reality, not as good on the live patch. Wukong certainly is pretty powerful as well. So it looks like the Crab Radiant side setting up for a lot. Well, everybody's just setting up for a lot of key ultimates, a lot of team fighting ultimates as we get the Freljordian combination in the bottom lane for the blue side.
And I mean, you mentioned Braum, top 5 in win rates in the bot side, and Ashe Braum, yes, it's Freljordian, and that makes it cooler, but it's just good in general. The lockdown, the slow, and of course, the stand behind me shield coming out of Braum means that's going to be a rough bot lane to get onto. That said, University of Michigan JV does have the opportunity where they haven't selected their bot side yet. They're kind of rolling in blind. And with the Ahri getting locked in as well, I know I'm colored, I'm supposed to know this, and I'm supposed to sound confident, but I'm pretty sure that leaves their bot lane for 4-5, which you never see.
Yeah, you rarely see that, certainly. Also, Aurora top is not her most played position. They can't be easily flexed up there, so the Aurora will go to the top lane here for UMJV. Ahri going to slot in with the mid lane, which is interesting. So I find it too intriguing because I've seen a lot of people play the Skarner Orianna as the Impale as a sort of way to get you a good shockwave, but the Wolverines would rather play the Ahri matchup and then ban away the Orianna for the Wukong.
What's fascinating to me, because, I've got these players pulled up. Angry Spoon, the mid laner for JV. Of the last 10 games, 9 of them were on Syndra. The other one on Victor. And I know it's not Orianna, but Syndra Orianna kind of similar there in terms of setup. Syndra their most played, Orianna their second most played, Ahri not down there till 3rd. So going off of what they normally play for potentially no good reason when it hasn't gotten banned. Senna, because why not? Senna's just kind of OP healing in the bot lane right now. And then the Galio ban as well. And Slayer, when we see it, we normally see the ebb and flow of, you picked a lane, so I can pick that lane because I know I'm not going to go blind and all of that. And that's not what we're
Right.
seeing here. We're just kind of throwing whatever we want at a wall, and we're going to see how the comps shape up later. And counter picks and blind picks be darned.
Yeah, counter picks are completely reversed here. This is a really weird spot to be in if you're Crab Radiant's draft team, because you're sitting now, you're going to go through a second ban phase. You're going to have U of Michigan JV. They're going to R4, so they're going to basically guarantee the solo lanes. And now your turn on blue side, which you're normally blinding champions that you don't really like your matchups, you can double counterpick your solo lanes here. So this is a really strong blue side, especially with how they started off with the Ashe on the B1. It's a draft spot that you rarely see teams even get into.
It is. We'll see what they can do with it because, you and I've cast enough League. I'm sure you've cast enough League. We can talk about the ideal way to play this all day long. The players don't hear this. The players are going to do what they want to do. And sometimes that's not at all what we think is going to come out of them. Jinx is going to get locked in, means that we're going to have B5 be the support. Sorry, R5 be the support. And that is a Veigar. And Veigar makes me so happy to see in competitive play.
Interesting. I used to hate on on him a lot more than I used to, I used to hate on him a lot more than I do now, because of the simplicity of his ultimate. But I recognize that there is a little bit more creativity to the champion than some of the other ones that I like to go after. The Camille B5, this is what I'm talking about. Like, you're playing blue side and you get to counterpick top. That doesn't ever really happen. A lot in competitive as well. So the Camille into Aurora matchup, that's just a perfect pick to match exactly what Aurora doesn't want to see, which is somebody that can stick on top of them and cut down the zone where she tries to create all of her damage. You hook shot in, you're right on top of her, and once you get ultimates online, Hextech Ultimatum, that Aurora, you can throw between worlds down all you want. You're in my battle zone in the Hextech Ultimatum. Your ult means nothing.
My bubble is smaller than your bubble.
Exactly.
The other beauty is in the top side, traditionally, the idea of a melee champ into a ranged champ early levels is absolutely terrible. Camille the melee, Aurora the ranged here, obviously. However, with that dynamic shield that Camille gets on a relatively quick cooldown at those early levels, gonna be able to buffer a lot more of those early trades and have greater survivability. I love the Camille pick here. You're absolutely spot on, Slayer. I am concerned, as much as I love to see Veigar, I'm a big fan of seeing champs I don't normally see in competitive. I am concerned about the Veigar into the Ahri. Veigar, I mean, traditionally, like the Smolder, if that's something that's more familiar to people, kind of takes 20, 25 minutes to get going. Can be accelerated, but takes a little while. And in the meantime, Angry Spoon on that Ahri can just roam all over you and make a difference in those lanes and maybe try and help Aurora out on that top side if that's the direction University of Michigan decides to go.
Certainly should. And we did see, you hyped up well, Hummus, the weird R5 scenario we're in here. Zillion. I mean, that is Zillion Jinx is a combo. It's intriguing because I'm actually just trying to think. I don't think I've ever seen Jinx and Zillion combined. So I'm gonna err on the side of this is a comfort pick with the Zillion, but there isn't like a clear champion that is like really benefiting a revive. I know obviously it's nice to keep your Jinx up if this Jinx gets jumped on, but it's not like, I'm trying to think of champions that really love Zillion revives. Like a Viego, like if you can revive a Viego so you get a reset, that's huge. Jinx doesn't get resets if the kills happen while she's on the revive. So this is like a weird gotcha moment. They're just playing for survivability.
I also got bad news for you. I'm not seeing anywhere where the Zillion would be a comfort pick, at least not a recent comfort pick.
Great.
So we're gonna say what my generation says, and we're gonna say we're cooking. I have seen Jinx Zillion before because I'm in an ungodly low, will not get mentioned elo. So my solo queue games do all the weird stuff.
There you go.
In competitive play at this level of play where we're at, because we do have to keep in mind these are like mass diamond average players here. Like
I'm in a master, yeah.
Yeah, they're not what you're seeing at Worlds if you're watching Worlds, obviously, but they're also not like what you get everywhere else. So clearly these players know what they're doing. I sincerely hope, have a game plan going into this. Gonna be honest, if University of Michigan wins this with a crazy draft, I will need to talk to their coach and be like, "Hey, what was the strategy?" Because like I coach my own collegiate teams. I need some tips here coming in. But I we talked about how weird the draft is, and there is something to be said for you throw a weird draft and you see what your opposing team does with it, because the opposing team is prepared in the draft for probably R1, R2 to be the bot side, and then there to be an R5 counter and a solo lane. That's what happens,
Mhm.
like, constantly. And so maybe there's something to be said for let's throw this at a wall. Let's see what they do about it. And I think Krabs acted perfectly, responded beautifully. You talked about the Camille. I have my worries about the Vigar, but if we get late game, Vigar is going to be completely fine because you may hate the point and click ult, but the point and click ult comes online and starts doing like 1,200 points of damage.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, listen. I'm not the biggest fan of champions whose abilities are so simple that there's not much outplay potential. Like
Ah,
Viga.
you're a
Well,
snob. I see how it
yeah,
is. You're a
yeah,
champ
okay.
snob.
Maybe I'm a champ snob. I find annoyance with like Garen's like the same logic for me. Like Garen is a annoying champion that's so simplistic. I'm fine with simplistic champions that can be punished correctly, but like Vigar, that's why I'm not as mad with Vigar. You can punish Vigar very easily if you gank at the
Yes.
correct times. If you bully him out early enough, you can knock him out of the game. Garen, there's no phase of the game where I think Garen could get bullied heavily, and it annoys the hell out of me. But luckily, hey, we're not seeing a Garen anytime soon here.
Well, not this
We're gonna get
game.
one.
Don't
Yeah, I
don't
feel
count
like
your
we're gonna get
chickens
one
for
now.
next game, because
Yeah,
we are in Fearless, so every
true.
champion you see will not come back. So who knows? Maybe they're listening, maybe they watch in and break, and they're like, "Ooh, I'm gonna mess with him, and I'm gonna play Garen." As we have summoners hit the board, pretty much standard across. The Jinx obviously having to take cleanse. That's what you do when you're into an
100%.
Ashe if you value your life. Ashe also taking the cleanse, not necessarily as important. Jinx has a little bit of CC with those jaw traps, but not as much. And then the unique difference between the heal versus the ignite. And you highlighted, Slayer, how Zillion is a champ designed to survive and keep Jinx alive down there. And that's what the heal's geared for. But here's the thing. If you are playing a comp where you are playing to survive, then you are looking for the late game.
Hmm.
There is a Vigar on the enemy team. You do not win in the late game. The second this game goes past probably about 30 minutes, Vigar starts just one-tapping Jinx and Aurora and Ahri. And, okay, Skarner's kind of a tank. I'll give him that. He's about the only tank that there is. And the downside to flexing Aurora top as opposed to the Garens, the Cassantes, those champions of the world is you're sacrificing a lot of tankiness for a lot of damage that Krabs Radiant can punish.
Certainly. I will give credit over to the Zillion pick. The only reason why this does work is if you chrono break whoever gets deleted by Vigar. Then you do eliminate that ultimate. You at least stall out the burst of this Vigar in the later game. But yeah, outside of that, I still question the Zillion. We'll see what gets cooked up here with the Zillion. And then I think you made a great point with the cleanse on Ashe. I think this is weird. I think you just take barrier. You're not cleansing a Skarner Impale. You can't cleanse yourself out of an Aurora Ultimate. So what are you cleansing? Chompers, a double stun on a Zillion Bomb, which you, if you're positioning correctly, you should never get stunned by Zillion, and then an Ahri Charm. So barrier is probably a bit more valuable here.
We'll see how it works. Maybe they know that Zillion's secretly their kryptonite, and that's why they
Yeah.
brought it for the double bomb. I think every League player has their kryptonite. Um,
Oh yeah. Uh,
and
ugh, don't even get me started on that topic. I will. There's a lot of champions that I self tilt when I see them get locked in against me. I think like you're saying though, that's everybody, right?
yeah, everybody's got one or two. So who knows? Maybe Michigan JV has like this brilliant scouting and is like, "Ooh, Zillion's the kryptonite. That's why we're gonna pull it out." Um,
Certainly.
regardless, we've beaten these drafts to death. It's time to see what they do on the Rift. And before we cut to that, I'm going to do what I always do, and I'm going to ask you who you think won draft, and then I will give you who I think won draft.
Yeah, I think it's Crab Radiant. I think it's simplicity of execution. They have enough CC to really pick off whoever they want. You hit an Ash Arrow, you hit a good Cyclone, you trap them in with a Cage, Glacial Fissure. There's a ton of just slows, stuns, all of that. And then I think Camille wins hard in the top side, and you could just kind of mark this Jinx every fight, try and take her out of it, and that is all of the AD damage out of the entirety Michigan comp. So draft-wise, I'm rolling with the team that's looking to be the only team that can really come out of this end of week 3 and 2 if they win their series.
I'm also going to go with Crabs Radiant for every
Yes.
reason that Slayer delineated, and then
Oh,
a
I stole your job.
couple.
My bad.
I asked you first. That's on me. Um, Hey, I am never gonna say no to a knowledgeable co-host who knows exactly what he's talking about.
I try.
Everything Slayer said is absolutely bang on. I want to see if Michigan can shock us with this Zillion pick, but I don't think they can. We are gonna cut to a quick break to accommodate spectator delay, and when we come back, we will figure out if Crabs Radiant really will shine radiant in this match 1. Don't go anywhere.
And just like that, we are live on Summersmith for Game 1 of our final week of regular season play with the Mythical League. Could be the final, will be actually the final Game 1 for one of our 2 squads here. And we have had as intriguing of a draft as you can get. You know, we talk about how we are in Fearless format. The U-Michigan draft feels like the product of a Game 3 in Fearless format. With a lot of champions off the board, but that's not the case. So maybe they're just trying to reverse engineer the system.
I was gonna say they're pre-prepping. Like they're like, we're gonna throw everything random out game 1. That way, game 2, they're not gonna expect us to be absolutely brilliant in the draft.
I mean, we'll see how it comes across. You know, if I do want to point out as well, our friend Zillion there has told us. I think we got the translation on that name. I'm gonna let Hummus say it because you found it. But we're going by Royce this series, so get that marked in your mind. Whenever I'm talking about Royce, I'm talking about the Zillion for UM.
You mean you don't want to call them by what it translates to, which is scrambled eggs with tomatoes?
I have a syllable limit, and that one goes way over for one singular name.
Every good play-by-play has a syllable limit. Maybe just call them like eggs or something. I don't know.
That was going to be the plan until they were like, "Yep, yeah, Royce is fine." I was like, "All right, we'll roll with that nonetheless." Jungler is going to be starting on their mirrored sides, both starting up towards the red side. Got some scouting wards down. It does seem like Crab Radiant will be able to track Woohoo a bit better once he jumps onto those Raptors.
Indeed, they did get the deep ward down. Mr. Eggs, his name is Royce, but I'm going to call him Mr. Eggs. Had the ward in the back tri-bush just to scout for an early invade there, which, I mean, it's a Wukong, Ashe, Veigar, Braum. That's not really an early invade comp unless you don't value life as much. But part of what we didn't talk about in draft, because we talked about a lot in draft, and part of what we didn't talk about was the zoning power that Braum Ashe is going to have over Jinx Zillion. Braum can kind of just stand there with the shield and be like, and now you can't touch my ADC or I. And that's going to be really, really hard to break through for Jaker and Eggs.
Yeah, this is Gazillion's like bomb damage. It's kind of just like a little bit of wind to the face at this early stage. You can see like yeah, even the Guardian Shield like tanks up all of the damage that one bomb's gonna throw down. And with what you're talking about with Jinx damage getting limited early game and into the Braum Shield, it's going to be a pushing lane towards the bot side for Crab Radiant, and once Void is able to get some levels down and stabilize this range v melee matchup, certainly expect this Camille to stabilize the lane, but Uber up there is actually doing a pretty good job poking out. Does get eat a hook shot, but goes into the invisibility. The shield comes out for Void, able to get some trading down. They're on the wrong side of the lane, by the way, guys. We can shift that one back on over, and I guess they'll just both happily handshake that, and nobody ends up burning a summoner.
Well, you say that Drex is looking for something. Maybe.
Okay.
There it is.
Yeah, Uper maybe gonna have to flash this hook shot. Does, but Void flashes to follow, goes under turret, and will trade, but it will be first blood back over to Crab Radiant and the Camille.
Still with the traded kill, just about enough gold to stabilize that CS difference that's developing in that ranged melee matchup. Flash for flash overall, so they take those dubs. Crab's Radiance takes that trade every day. I will say, though, Aurora on the back got 2 amplifying tomes, so gonna be putting out a little bit more damage up there than they were before. Meanwhile, bot side of the map, Woohoo came, he saw, he went, I got nothing in this lane, and he recalled.
Yep. Good on the Zillion Jinx bomb lane to get a pretty hefty wave shoved in. Yeah, that is actually a really good reset timer for Aaron Yeager, so able to come back to lane, and that is the smart purchase. Haters be damned. This is a free coal game for Jinx and Aaron Yeager, so I like that purchase a lot.
See, I'm not good enough to make a cull work, but I respect the value it brings to those who are. And you know, at this level, the Jinx should be good enough to make it work, already at 32 CS, so not going to be too much longer. I want to just appreciate for a split second Royce body blocking the volley shot so that Jaeger's recall actually made it all the way off. Absolutely beautifully done. Planned or not, don't know. We're going to give him the credit of it was planned. First dragon on the map, going to be a mountain dragon. And woohoo, we might see another dive topside.
Well, I like this. Uper was 2 levels up on Void, now is 1, has the Between Worlds. They have a huge wave stacked up, but I guess Woohoo doesn't want to go for the play. Uper going to be waiting on some of these cooldowns, just poking for these grass stacks. But Woohoo will not make up his mind here. Now, with the wave cut down, is just going to reset, but that's 2 times we saw a bit of wasted time for Woohoo, just kind of sitting, pondering these ganks.
He's Skarner. He can go through walls, so he was using that time he bought during his clear by going through walls to sit there and ponder.
True. Fair enough.
I would say I would rather see a jungler ponder a gank and opt to not do it than force a gank that shouldn't be done. So, you know, a little bit of that. 6 minutes, grubs are up, and Drex is on the Drake. And traditionally, which nothing about this game so far has been traditional, but traditionally you see the handshake of neutrals. With these grubs being started so much later than when Drake's finishing, there is the opportunity, if Drex wants it, to challenge for those grubs.
Certainly can, and you know, you certainly feel like the Camille side comp I think really likes this trade, or doesn't actually like this trade because you want to get Camille on those side lanes split pushing. And the Jinx comp I feel like is the one that actually wants the dragon stacking, so a little bit topsy-turvy, but like you called out, Hummus, the classic trade we see, might see some junglers fighting it out finally here, is Woohoo wants the Scuttle Crab, finds Mr. Drex, but Skarner doesn't have enough damage, and Mr. Drex doesn't have an ultimate, so there's actually negative kill threat there.
We call that a wet noodle fight from where I'm from. You just kind of stand there and watch it happen, and you're like, anything gonna actually happen? Interestingly enough, Trinity on the Vigar roamed quicker and faster than Samus on the Ahri. Ahri, a champion notorious for the mobility. And that was one of the key points we highlighted was Ahri should, in theory, not walk into the cage.
Yep. Also not with charms here. It's starting to give up a hefty amount of CS into Trinity, so he's doing a pretty good job on this Vigar. I'm sure also able to freely stack those first strike stacks, which is throwing Qs after Q, so
I
Bit of a
mean,
late lead building up for a scaling Vigar like you talked about.
you mentioned, I am curious if production can tell us how many stacks Vigar's at this point in time. You mentioned how Vigar, yes, his ultimate is an outplay button. Ooh, 66 at 8 minutes in. That's a lot. Um, you mentioned, I'm going to shut up.
Around between worlds thrown down, Woohoo does get the slam into the wall. Nick Stall's impact, and that's as easy as a kill as you'll ever find for Uper. So this Aurora pick is really paying off here for U of Michigan.
And we weren't expecting it to, so maybe we just don't know what we're talking about, player.
Cleanse and Flash, there would be burned there from Aaron Yeager to get away from the Cyclone Ash Arrow combination. A trade that Crab Radiant will always take. Ultimates for Summoners.
Oh, 100%. Maybe I can actually get my Vigar point across. You mentioned how point-and-click ultimate for Vigar feels a little wrong. But, you know, you also mentioned how it can be really, really easy to counter Vigar. And here's how you don't do that. By walking into his things.
Yep.
And we've seen very, very little of mid lane off of the Spectator just because that's where the least has been happening. They're kind of content to just farm. But here's the problem. Into a Vigar, you cannot be content to just farm. That's like saying, oh, I'll just farm into a Smolder and it'll be fine. It does not work.
Absolutely not. Yeah, these are champions you have to routinely punish. And it did feel like, you know, the Wolverines, the JV Wolverines, did draft correct measures to try and punish it, just have not really found much. That's why we're still afraid of this Vigar. But the gold lead is about dead even. Just where the gold is allocated currently, I'm definitely going to be a fan of the team that has it on this Aurora. It's funny because Aurora and Camille are two champions that, ever since we shifted splits, are just hilariously, no, I don't want to call them broken, overpowered. They're very powerful champions. So the fact that both of them have gold leads is interesting. Also, the fact that both of them are running the same Summoner rune is still cool. Funny to me that we have Grasp Aurora top in League of Legends right now.
I hadn't even noticed the Grasp. I was more focused on, you talked about the gold being on Aurora, Aurora 2-1, Aurora up 25 CS. Notably, Void only probably about half a level behind at this point, which is impressive play for how this top lane's been going. And there's a Zilean top, and oh my god.
Yeah, they're trying to shift up here. They're looking to make a play with the numbers advantage. And with between worlds, you can hold Mr. Drex in place, but the Flash Impale comes across to follow from Woohoo. Gets the lockdown on Mr. Drex. Just seems like all of them were towards this top side, really wanted to play for the 6 grubs, and they're going to get it.
They are. The million-dollar question is, what does Crab's Radiant get for it? Because right now, Palm Go on the Ash, getting to free farm just a little bit. The teleport from Aurora will come through to help answer that, which is necessary, because anymore, and you start handing over free turret plates to an Ash, who, if we want to talk about gold spreading out across the team, the more gold Ash has, the happier she is.
Yeah, but you know who's happy right now in their element? Uper. I mean, easies on these trades, dodging every summoner. Gotten both members of this bottom lane to below half HP, but they want to fight. Asho still going to land. The invisibility comes across for Uper. Does not have Between Worlds, but does have that completely Leandries. So Uper flashing out, but boy, did it hurt that Crab Radiant bottom lane to even go for that 2 versus 1.
And now they burned so much, getting Uper down to half. They have to be very, very careful. Otherwise, Uper's just going to trade them back. And maybe this is what Zilean was here for. Maybe Zilean was here for the Aurora revive.
Oh, maybe. Wow, flashing to try and get the double bomb stun is not going to end up with either of them is Royce. And the whip not going to get enough damage, not going to reach for Uper. But they do get that flash off the Ash.
Slayer, why is this comp working?
I'm going to chalk it to Uper is very good on Aurora so far. That's my sentiment at the current moment.
I realize that is my job to answer that question, but I'm sitting here going, this shouldn't be working, and yet it is working. I do think a lot of our concerns are going to be met when we actually get to the 5v5 team fights, when we get later on, but for now, Sam has just found herself a little bit of plate gold on that Ahri, and that's going to help neutralize the difference between her and that Vigar that we've seen show up, and it's a murder bush.
That murder bush, look at the stun lock. Trinity well placed Event Horizon. Royce didn't even get to use that powerful Chrono Shift, and maybe have further fighting here as Dex does get the Cyclone out, but it's once again a great Woohoo Impale that locks Drex in position, exactly what the Wukong doesn't want to happen. It'll be a trade once more of kills, this time towards the top side.
Gold still dead even, about 500 separating these two teams across the board. And if we're tracking a different stat, I'd like to point out Ari's 1 for 3 on charms hitting as of right now. So hoping to see Samus start hitting those just a little bit more frequently. That would be nice. Just, you know, start Ari's like two things. Ari's over the wall dive off the ultimate and Ari's charm. And if you're not being one of those two things, you need to be one of those two things. Caddy on production being wonderful, pulling up the gold difference. And across the board, the story to talk about is Aurora up 900 gold at this point in time. That's a component of an item. That's a third of an item. That's not insubstantial, especially when you are 3-1 and kind of carrying this team at this point.
Yep, certainly is carrying this team. And, you know, to credit of the JV squad from U of M, that is what they drafted for the Aurora to be, even in this wacky draft. So, Uber drafted to be a pivotal point of the spear. Uber will be that going forward. We'll see just what this Camille Aurora matchup looks like now. Both have completed items, but just feels like Uber is a lot stronger, and maybe that top lane tier 1 turret won't be much longer for the world, and first turret gold certainly can start to build up a lead in that department for you.
Absolutely can. And speaking of first turret, we hit 14 minutes, which means two things. Means one, no more turret plates, so no more extra turret plate gold to be rewarded. UMJV getting the better of the plate trade just based on getting, I believe it was 3 or 4 on the top side. But two, 14 minutes also means the Rift Herald is spawned. And if we want to talk about first turret gold and forcing that, Ari ran into a cage again.
Did hit the charm, but did not expect Mr. Drex to pop out, and the primordial burst, you press R, it follows you wherever you go. And Samus finds that out the hard way after expending the flash. Kill back to the Vigar as the top laners continue to trade. I was baited into thinking there was a lot more there than there was.
That's what they wanted you to think. They wanted you to think there was a lot because they're setting up the bot side down here.
Yep, Woohoo trying to glide with the X-Stall's impact, but doesn't grab the wall, so doesn't get the speed up. Impale is going to pull onto the Alchemist's Braum. Does flash, but eats a pair of choppers. Gets the shield back up, so they're buying a ton of time for this Ashe to ramp up with lethal tempo. Teleport coming behind the rocket still will not kill off Alchemist. This guy survives for years, but the Chrono Shift should bail out Eren Yeager. If they wait out the ultimate timer, though, they can pick up the kill. That's exactly what Crab Radiant do. Trinity in the backline trying to find a kill onto this Ari, but will not find it. Shut down over to Uper. It's just trades galore of kills with all 9 members except Mr. Drex showing up. And it's going to be a 2 for 2 at the end of the day.
That was a lot expended for a 2 for 2. You called out Drex not coming down there for that. Does mean that Krabs went even on a 4 for 5 and picked up the Rift Herald, so we're going to be looking to see where that drops for the first turret gold. That said, holy team fight, A. B, have to wonder how much that would have been helped if the teleport had come out sooner. It was like this very staggered, we're team fighting. Oh, crud, they're team fighting, let me teleport. Especially from Uper. But, you know, it worked. Say what you will, it worked. Uper did not go down. Uper still has a 300 gold shutdown that Krabs Radiant is going to want to collect on. And Dragon is spawning here in under a minute, so catch your breath, Slayer, because we might see a team fight again here real quick.
Certainly. And I am still waiting to see the Chrono Shift power here. This is why Zillion is a tough champion to pick in competitive settings, because with extra communication, you could just tell everybody to not hit the guy that has the reviving ultimate on top of them, and that's exactly why that trade happened. Eren Yeager was 10 HP, but Void did not resisted the intrusive thought to auto-attack the low health AD carry until that ult came off, and that is another thing that really just won that last fight. So we'll see how often that gets recognized, as Void feels a lot more confident in this matchup into Uper now with some more items, with a level 2 ultimate behind him. Trades are starting to seem a bit more even.
And I mean, Void's a top laner, so you're spot on. Top laner sees thing and says, kill. Did not kill. What's arguably more impressive is nobody accidentally caught Jaeger's Jinx with, like, a stray ability or anything.
Right.
Like, keeping somebody alive on 10 hit points long enough for Royce's ult to go away is actually more impressive than killing somebody on 10 hit points. Rift Herald mid, looking for that coveted first turret gold, and maybe this is where we start seeing things turn around and take a definitive form in terms of which team is winning, because right now, they're trading, and, I mean, the cold lead is less than 100 apart here, Slayer.
Yeah. It feels like the way they're positioning, one of these teams has the Dragon stack in favor, but it's actually 1-1. This is usually the group ups you see normally for those spots. Is we see Trinity looking for an Event Horizon stun by efficiently placing that stun, but maybe steps up too far. Woohoo looks to punish, doesn't get the stun in the wall. Now has to go for a Prairie Impale, but the stun lock comes across between worlds for Uper. Wants to try to get to the back line, but won't be able to. The Rocket will snipe out Uper on the backside, and the big bad for U of M is now down. Make it a second as the jungler crumbles as well. Crab Radiant stack up as 5 and accomplish their mission so far.
And I think more impressively, they once again waited out the Zillion ulti. It got dropped on Woohoo, and I was watching that super, super closely, and Woohoo died right after it. So somebody on Crabs knows the Zillion ult, how long it lasts, really, really well. That or they're getting really lucky. One time lucky, 2 times not lucky, and oh dear. Oh, it was a cleanse, okay.
Yeah, not the ability you want to be paying the cleanse stacks on, though. That's for the Ash Arrows, for maybe, you know, Braum, passive stun, stuff like that. Not an Event Horizon where you have to walk into the stun, but glad you called out the Chrono Break, though, or the Chrono Shift Break. Breaking of the Chrono Shift, that's so funny because there's another Chrono-based ability called Chrono Break, so my brain wants to say Chrono Break every 5 seconds. But it's not. It's not.
I don't cast Zillion enough to know whether or not you're right or wrong, so it's a Chrono thingy. We know what it does, that's all that's important. And back to your cleanse point, you know, it's one thing to cleanse an ability that has a longer cooldown of an ultimate of the Ash Arrow. It's quite another to, yeah, it's like 10 seconds. It's kind of a long cooldown, but it's an E ability for Veigar. Like, it's not a long ability. The other thing is Veigar's success is solely based on how many stacks he has. And even if you cleanse the ability, it does not cleanse away the fact that you gave him a stack by running into it in the first place.
Oh, Mr. Direct on the chase here. Holds the Cyclone for a while to try and get Trinity close enough, and that is exactly how it works with the Event Horizon finding the stun. Do have Royce swinging over Void with the teleport, though. It does seem like Crab Radiant still on this fight, and they Hextech ultimate right on top of Woohoo. Will they let Royce get close enough to get the Chrono Shift ultimate off? They will, but once again, will they be able to wait it out? No, they do trigger the revive, but they just delete Royce on the background. Trippy held the Primordial Burst for the Zillion, and that's what makes the skirmish pay off. The chase, cash in extra bit of gold, as Trinity is still just hitting these stuns, sending in Mr. Woohoo, sending Mr. Woohoo back. Mr. Drex has to jump in. And they do get the flash cleanse, or sorry, Zhonya's out of the Ahri instead.
And you might not get to catch your breath because we're looking for turret.
No. Hey, remember when Jaeger cleansed the last E-stun?
Yeah.
Didn't have it up this time, and dies to Void. Woohoo's getting run down as well. This is the 6 Grubs team, by the way. They do have Jump on the back line, as them and Samus are both trying to set up a flank. There are low health bars, but they're not finding these kills just yet. Void's going to go back in with the Q2, try and get a heal off the W. They'll finally find that shutdown onto Void. But Void's death allowed the rest of Crab Radiant to sneak on out and find themselves another Tier 2 turret.
More importantly, though, not the rest of Crab Radiant, because they did that entire fight trading upwards, by the way, 4v5. Palm Goat on the Ash was never there, took 2 turrets in mid and a whole lot more in terms of gold, CS, all of that. And the concern is if you can win 4v5, what can you do 5v5?
Especially with your Ash, too, right? This is now going to be a 2-item AD carry. This Marks was just completed the Fan Dancer. So, Palm Goat playing the classic. This is the most classic Ash stat line I've ever seen in my life. You're playing AD carry, you farm, you're supposed to be the big damage dealer. Nope. This guy's 0-4 with the bounty.
I mean, you don't need to be a big damage dealer when you've got Trinity. We're hitting the 22-minute mark, and we've got 9 stacks on the Magi's. We've got the full 10 on the Rod of Ages. That's why you see the level advantage. And if production would be so kind as to do the clicky-clicky and show how many phenomenal evil power stacks we have on that Veigar, the answer is 275. And I mean, the ability power's got to be insane. I'm just waiting for the Rabadons. We've already got one needlessly large rod. And we talked about, you know, Vigard coming online 20, 25 minutes and could get accelerated. He's there. He is accelerated.
Yeah, he's terrifying.
His EQ was taking over half of Ari's health in that last team fight. And I mean, when you need that, you don't even need the Primordial Burst. You could waste it on a Zilean because Zilean's not exactly the heaviest damage dealer that you necessarily want to target with the ult. But we don't need to worry about target selection when we're so powered we just two-shot anybody.
Yeah, it's true. I like to think that last exchange where he blew up Royce was like, he's thinking in his head, all right, Royce, I dare you to ult Woohoo, because either you're going to ult him to save him, and I'm going to permanently burst you, or you save it for yourself, and I do it to your Skarner. There's no winning here with the mad little genius that Trinity's playing. And you mentioned it, right? This is a Seraph shield complete for Trinity, so he has that when he gets low. He's naturally tanky as hell because he's got a 10-stack Roa. And if you're worried about the AP, this Medjai's is stacking up decently well to bring that home. Trinity can win this game all on their own for Crab Radiant. And that's not even talking about the other members who have bounced back and quietly been stellar performers.
2 items across the board. Hello, Mega Death Rocket. And, you know, we had our concerns about the draft, and did the early game go how we thought it was going to go? Absolutely not. You know, University of Michigan, to their credit, held really, really strong in the early game, and now we're here, and now it's probably about, at this point, 300 stacked Vigar, and there's not a lot that can be done anymore. And I know we've called out Samus running into the event horizon a time or two when he really shouldn't have. To be very, very clear, this many stacks does not come from your mid laner running into your abilities one too many times. It comes from proficiency on the champion, knowing how to hit those Qs to get 2 minions every time when you're farming. It's just champion mastery at this point.
Without a doubt. The one lucky part about it is that Wolverines won't have to see it for the rest of the series no matter what happens at the end of this game. So
now,
that's
next
the thought.
We're going to pull out the Aurelion Soul next.
Oh boy.
And then if we go to game 3, we're pulling out the Smolder mid. Like, we're just going to...
mid. Full index into scaling.
No, Nasus mid. Sorry, my bad.
You know, it is interesting to think about the fact that at one point, Nasus mid was meta as a counter pick. That's where we were at one point.
We were, and well, we're here now.
Oh, okay. Woohoo does still hit the Impale. Drex flashes over the wall, but Trinity's like mere presence is just terrifying. You see the event horizon, you don't go in. You eat 1 Q to the face, and it takes 40% of Samus's health bar, and we're done. We're done chasing. No more.
And at this point, hold
on.
My God.
Samus burns the Zanyas to try and avoid the dive from Void, who is up. Trying to set that dive re-up. There is no wave, but they spot the back timer. They hit the Ash Arrow, and Void goes in. Redemption's going to come down for some healing. Hextech will make him committed. Good charm there from Samus. Void's eating way too much of this turret, so it will be a trade, but they've got Woohoo on the ropes. The Chrono Shift goes and comes and goes, and Woohoo still falls. Event Horizon, look how it holds Yopper in place. He still ends up eating that stun. It's just limiting the Aurora's impact is Trinity's job, and that's why Crab Radiant are so successful.
And I was going to make a point about how UMJV needs to figure out how to manage this Vigar, and the answer is they can't without expending literally everything onto Vigar. Like, it would take multiple ultimates to, like, impale him into the Between Worlds and all that, and if you do all of that, well, you're dead to the rest of the team. Because it's not like Crab's Radiant is all Trinity by any stretch of the imagination, but they are all wearing purple.
They are all indebted to Baron Nashor. And, you know, call back some of the draft points, right? Like, there are enough disruptors for that style. You can, if Samus tries to flash charm, you have that go button if you're UMJV. You mentioned the Skarner going in, the Between Worlds, but gotta call out the good point you made, how much this Braum is getting so much value in that same aspect, just being able to block a lot of the Jinx damage. Like, that's the damage that needs to kill the Vigar, really, outside Aurora Flank. None of it's getting through the shield right now.
No. And I'd like to highlight one thing. I don't know if everybody caught it, but our producer pulled up a little something called Vigar's ability power. And I don't know if you saw it, Slayer. So if you
I missed
didn't,
it.
this is gonna be a really fun question. 13 Magi stacks and a Rabadons, and about 375 stacks. Where do you think his ability power's at?
Well, I'm gonna cheat because you're asking the question. It has to be like really stupidly high. So I'm gonna guess like 950.
1,064.
That's terrifying. Okay, yeah. So I mean, that's
Rygar,
just what 1Q and you can ult anybody except the Skarner and they'll probably die.
I I don't think you even need your ultimate at this point. Like that's an EQW, and two
Yep.
people are dead if they're both caught in it. Especially the squishier members, and we highlighted in draft how the Aurora top brings damage when executed, which Uber has done a phenomenal job executing, don't get me wrong, but it sacrifices the tankiness and the ability to stand into just that straight damage from Vygar. Also notably, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not seeing one iota of magic resist built yet by anybody on Michigan.
Nope. We're getting resistance from the shield on Alchemist is eats up a ton of damage and a couple of stuns. Just buying time for this 1-3-1. They caught Woohoo trying to maybe set up a flank in his own jungle. But you're all alone, my friend, surrounded by the enemy, and Woohoo will fall for a 5th time. That should add even more pressure to go for a play. There's the flash down we talked about. Trinity is all alone, will flash the rocket as the Between Worlds goes down, drops the event horizon, and tries to blow up Samus, who does golden the primordial burst, but the W comes across. Trinity in 1 versus 4, refuses to die, and maybe just wins the game for Crab Radiant here.
The purple, it took his flash, and the Void Staff came out. So 1, 2, 3 inhibitors going down. I want to correct one tiny thing you said, Slayer. You called that Woohoo's jungle. That ain't Woohoo's jungle anymore. That is Crab's jungle.
And this isn't UMJV's base anymore. It's the broken rubble of it. Crab Radiant, it took them a hair under 30 minutes, but they will confidently take game 1 and establish their dominance for the series with the playoffs on the line.
And, you know, they were 2-2 heading into this, and if they've played like that throughout the season, I wonder how good some of these other teams I haven't had the ability to cast are to make them 2-2. Now, UMJV, you know, they're a game away from being 1-4, and if you're 1-4, you're not making playoffs. That's not a thing
Yep.
that is happening. And we know that. If you make 2 and 3, we throw it into tiebreaker realm and we see what happens, and that's for people who know the rulebook a lot better than us to figure out. But if you're them, you tried I mean, we called it off meta. We called it looks like it's like game 5 of a Fearless draft that they're pulling out, all the random champions. And I have to wonder what the mindset is behind that. To their credit, as we take a look at this post-game breakdown, up until about 19 minutes, dead even. Like,
Yep.
the early game was not the problem. The problem was, well, Vygar in 20 minutes. That's just kind of what Vygar does. And give me a couple tweaks on draft. It doesn't have to be totally meta. You don't have to pull out, you know, what LNG's pulling out at Worlds or anything. I'm not asking for that. You got to play what you're comfortable on. You got to play what you're good at. But maybe don't R5 Zillion.
Yeah. Uh, I share. There's not much more for me to say here. I just once again going to highlight the Braum power, and the positioning power that's come out for Crab Radiant. I know the damage numbers are obviously going to favor the team that just won, especially how they blow out the end of it. But these damage numbers are ridiculously low for any team, even the losing side, right? Like for your AD carry not to break 10,000, the Skarner didn't do much damage, and a lot of Yopper's damage was actually early in that game, so it wasn't the later. The fact that the Braum was able to block this much damage and there just wasn't enough damage to dish out, like Crab Radiant really took over once they were able to really group up outside of their lane assignments, and that seems to be where they're strongest. And we'll see if UM of JV of U of M, it's a fun little phrase to try and say out loud, can maybe adapt to a draft that punishes enough in the early game where you could just snowball home, because it doesn't seem like Crab Radiant are easy to knock down once they group up as 5, and they showed that in the game 1 win.
I mean, they didn't even group up as 5, Slayer. They grouped up as 4 and let
True.
Palm Goat kind of do their own thing and still won. And when you got to give Crabs credit, they had the guts to pull that off, and they pulled it off beautifully. As we look towards the future, towards game 2, we're looking to potentially the end of UMJV season. So I don't believe we've got draft ready yet. So I'm gonna take a break. Of course, the last time I said that, I got my timers wrong. So Slayer's gonna tell me if I can cut us to break.
Drum roll. You can cut us to break. Yes.
Wonderful. So we're gonna take a break while these teams figure out what side they're gonna be on, figure out what they're gonna play for game 2, and when we come back, we'll have game 2. Hopefully not the last game of the night, but we'll see. See you there.
We are back in action here as the mainstream winds down the regular season of the Mythical League. Week number 5, a lot of playoff implications in this game number 2 coming. But first, you get to see which champions are not available for their respective sides. So to explain it best, I'd say if University of Michigan JV wanted to play the Vigar, they could pick it, but Crab Radiant could not get that back for Trinity. That's the scenario we are in. The other scenario being Hummus. Crab Radiant win here. We avoid all the chaos of the end of this group. 2 and 3, Armageddon is not a reality.
I mean, we won't talk about how the other teams do. We could still end up with a couple permutations and tiebreakers, but I'm the sort of person who I want to see 2 and 3 Armageddon. Like I live for that kind of chaos, and then I, as the coach, don't want to see it. I'm like, dear God, whatever you do, don't go to tiebreaker. Just make playoffs on your own. That's what's on the line here is for, like you said, Crab to avoid the tiebreaker disaster and earn their spot in playoffs. And depending on how XG Riders does, maybe even get second seed here. Like, there's a lot on the line for them. For Michigan, they just need their season to stay alive. And, well, we're in draft. And what's hilarious to me, one, we didn't switch sides, but what's hilarious to me is we talked about he pulled out the Vigar. Maybe he'll pull out the Aurelion Soul because that's a logical thing to do next. Banned the Aurelion Soul. So we won't be getting that next.
We will not, but I do like the Crab Radiant adaptation. The fact that they lost their favorite B1 pick to Fearless. They instead go for the Hui, which you could throw into Trinity. You could also throw into either bottom lane role, and there are compositions that can work around it. So you could go AP carry Hui, you could go support Hui with long range. Like, there's a lot you could do with it. So I like this pick a lot.
We're seeing a bot lane pick for UMJV, not in the second round. I am happy. It's the Kai'Sa. I'm slightly less happy about the Kai'Sa. Don't love a Kai'Sa in general. That's my personal opinion. Really short range until she gets going, and there's a lot of other ADCs in the meta right now that can take advantage of that and snowball. That said, not terrible, and it's a first pick. We'll be happy with it, Well, let's not let blue side counterpick all of our solo laters. Out comes the Jarvan as well, so that should be AJ for jungle, and we're going a lot more supporting and feel good in the jungle than we were game 1.
Certainly. I think the way to describe Kai'Sa the most is she's awesome to watch because you can outplay your opponents in so many ways, but you also can fall flat on your nose if you mess up one killer instinct or you misposition just a tiny bit. It's like she's evolved Vayne, right? That's how I always pretended Kai'Sa when she came out. She's just more chaotic Vayne, but plays the same way. The Thresh locked in here on the B2. Oh, okay. So this is interesting because Kog'Maw is really prevalent in the meta right now, but he's prevalent because he just goes AP and he basically just turns into like glorified Xerath, but instead of Xerath W, it's Xerath. It's the R on Kog'Maw. But that's a lot of AP. So I wonder if this is actually just going to be an on-hit Kog'Maw that isn't as popular currently.
It could be. Depends on what goes through for the rest of the comp. And I mean, maybe they feel good going all AP because it's not like UMJV built Magic Resist into the face of a 1000 AP Vigar, so maybe they don't know that Magic Resist exists. Like, maybe they're feeling good enough that itemization isn't... I mean, to be fair to the University of Michigan, your itemization for things like Magic Resist typically comes in item 3, item 4. They didn't really get to item 3 or item 4 to be able to itemize. I'm curious, Slayer, your thoughts on Malzahar as a champion, because you talked about Vigar's R being and he presses R. Malzahar is the epitome of he presses R and you die.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head there, Hummus. Malzahar is definitely a champion I despise. I think this champion is poorly designed, lazy, and not fun to play. Its entire design is I have 3 abilities that help me just spam clear waves. So you have 0 interaction against me. The laning is just catching my waves. And then my entire gameplay is, ooh, who am I going to ult to suppress them? Wait a minute. You guys want me to get spicy? Flash R. That's all he's got. That's it. That's his entire gameplay. That's all you could do on this champion. It's like the lamest thing ever. This guy needs a rework. If anyone's going to get reworked, Malzahar, please.
I have a question for you, Slayer.
Yep.
Oh no, we did just miss a ban. Okay, I thought my draft lol froze for a minute, and no, we just kind of missed a ban.
Dante. It is
That was
Cassante.
that is Cassante. Okay, it's lagging. That's good to know. I hope production knows that production is also lagging for me because unlike Slayer, who's cool and can just remote into Caddy's computer and see what's happening, I have firewalls that say I can't.
Ooh.
So I get to rely on Discord.
Lovely. Surely Discord streams have never been problematic for anybody ever.
I will say, statistically, Riot Spectator Client has been more of a problem than Discord. Not by much, but it has been noticeable. With that, bands still lagging out a little bit here. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens. I wonder if they're just going to opt to finish draft client side because that is a thing you can do. In all caps, I'm hearing it's an Orin ban.
Yeah, so the one misband right below me is Cassante. The one misband right below Hummus is Orn. So we're just taking away top laners. We're taking away
And then
frontliners, which makes a ton of
y-
sense.
you've still got one more band left on your side, Slayer, if I
I do.
do my math right, because you've got two empty ones in front of you. We'll see what that is, and we'll see if Draft Lol decides to catch up. But I let you go on your little Malzahar tirade, and it
Thank you.
was spot on. Nautilus. The final ban is Nautilus because that actually makes a lot of sense. Because Kaisa Nautilus is a thing. We're talking about how much Jinx Zillion is not a thing, but
Oh,
that, that, that,
we're catching up.
are we? I'm not.
Some of these bands
Oh,
are
Caddies is.
coming. These aren't the. I think so. Don't take too much stock in the bands because I think those are all wonky. Maybe we'll be able to get back for the picks. I don't know. This is draft low lagging out like it does like probably 6 to 7 times a day. It's very annoying.
I'm gonna trust what Caddy has said in terms of bans. So,
Yeah, Caddy's just
okay,
telling us
we're
to
just
do the
doing this
thing.
over
This is
chat now,
hilarious.
y'all. So, we're just gonna give up on draft lol, and we're gonna say that the bans
Oh
were Cassante, Orn, and Nautilus. Rakan ban is accurate, so for Caddy, that's working. So that is an R4 Rakan pick,
yes.
which has a lot of engage that Kaisa likes. It's not the tankiness of the Nautilus, the Alistar, all the other meta engaged champs, but it is engaged and it is shield. I will give it that. And yet again, as we're waiting for more picks to come through, I find myself concerned about the lack of a tank, in this case, on either side.
Yeah. It is well that your remedies something that's got to be remedied because this B4 pick that Crab Rating we're not able to get in due to the laggy draft law is a Sejuani, so that is your tanky frontliner. I wonder if that's going to mean a melee top, and I was right. So it's Sejuani Renekton to close out the Crab Radiant comp. They have found their front line. They put it together.
Yeah, and that's one of the two teams I'm worried about. Now let's see what UMJV can pull out. They are looking for their top laner. So Uper has gone from blue 1 to blue 5. And that feels like a loss of priority, but it's actually really not when you're looking at the counter pick. And if my draft level is caught up, that is going to be a Jax. That is
Yep.
going to be a Jax. Still not a tank. Good
So,
engage. A
yeah.
lot right with the champion. Still not a tank.
Very powerful right now. One of the premier top laners for a lot of people at the higher levels of this, and is certainly a Renekton counter. The simplistic explanation of that is, remember that nice stun Renekton has that cuts down all the armor? The stun
Yeah.
doesn't go off if Counter Strike is up. So we'll see if Yopper can once again dominate a matchup that he won last time. I know Void was pretty powerful at the end of the game on the Camille, but Uper had Void's number in that laning phase. The phase of the game where we felt the Wolverines were most potent in last game.
Yeah. That's the very, very nice way of putting it. I was gonna go for the phase of the game they didn't outright lose. Um
There you go.
it, details, details. UMJV, if there's one super positive thing that can get taken away from what happened game one, it was the early game. We saw that post game breakdown up until about 19, 20 minutes. It was dead even. And a large part of what was left with that was the Vigar. Crab's Radiant doesn't have those super hyper scaling threats this game. So maybe you make it until 30 minutes until someone's concerning. Maybe you can keep this game significantly closer.
Maybe. I will say back to, it's one thing to have a draft plan and to execute your plan in draft and then execute onto the Rift. Teams that I grade higher in many leagues is how you can adapt your draft plan to what the enemy team is giving you. And I think Crab Radiant have done a very good job minimizing the impact of this Malzahar, because you can't just pick like 5 range and just play, oh, Malzahar is never in range to ult anybody. Haha, your ultimate means nothing. But what they've done is they picked Hwei and Kog'Maw, two, main damage dealers that sit like halfway across the screen. Unless Samus is flash ulting Hwei or Kog'Maw, or they miss position on these champions, which they showed a tendency not to do in game 1 for Crab Radiant. What are you going to do? You're going to ult a Sejuani? You're going to ult a Renekton? Like, the Renekton's the only target that's ever going to be a viable ult target in my mind. Because if you're ulting Thresh or Sejuani, it's useless. Renekton's the only one, and that's still not getting to the main primary damage dealers, which most Malzahar players want to be the person ulting.
And you highlighted the extra range that the Hui and the Kog'Maw have. We're gonna look for that to be super, super key in those early lanes for Crab. One of the things I talked about on Kai'Sa is, exactly like Vayne. I'm a Vayne top player. I know, it's that bad. That means I'm familiar with the style of champion. And one of the real downsides to Kai'Sa, Vayne, that sort of thing, is how short range they are to start. Kai'Sa's missiles get there, the killer instinct. You have to be so careful on the killer instinct because, stereotypically Slayer, what does the back line do? They stay in the back.
Yep.
Because if they end up in the front, they die. And the team that
Mhm.
wins, stereotypically in your standard front to back comps, is the team that keeps the back line alive the longest, or alternatively, the team that kills the other back line first.
Mhm.
Kai'Sa says, hi, backline, I'm in your backline now. When she lands it properly. We're talking about Malzahar, point and click R. Kai'Sa's like the exact opposite of that. Yeah, you hit it and you can hit it, but if you want to stay alive, you're not double hitting it. Now, we have summoner spells, and we have a
Yes.
cleanse on Kai'Sa, which makes sense. Glacial Prison, Thresh Hook, like there's a lot to cleanse away from. More importantly to me, Palm Goat running barrier. What's fascinating about that, ironically enough, is this might be a game where you run cleanse in case Samus gets the flank, gets the Malzahar ult down. Can you cleanse out of a Malzahar ult? I should know
But
this.
you cannot. That is the thing, right? So
Okay, so
yeah,
we can tell I don't play into Malzahar, like, ever.
yeah. Well, yeah. So face value, you would think like cleanse should work on that, but that's one of those really silly like verbiages when it comes to what cleanse can do. It cannot cleanse suppresses. So you cannot, the same way you can't cleanse a Skarner Impale, you can't cleanse a Malzahar ult, which is
What?
silly because you would assume you could.
I'm in this giant laser beam. Cleanse.
Yep.
But, also, isn't Malzahar, this is completely off topic, but isn't Malzahar and Skarner like two of the only champions with suppresses? Urgot has one on his ultimate,
Yes.
and I think that's about it.
It's about
So
it. Yeah.
apparently, we figured out UMJV's draft strategy. They're drafting suppress. That's what they're going for.
There you
Everything
go.
makes sense now. With
Everything,
that, have the
everything adds
heal
up.
on the Rakan, have the ignite on the Thresh. Pretty standard across the board. And I am going to take my own thunder this time, and I'm going to tell you who I think wins draft, and then I'm going to ask you because your answer was just too good last time. I didn't have anything to add on it. I gotta say, coming out of draft, UMJV, much, much more cohesive, much more put together draft than what we saw. That said, still has a couple flaws, a couple weaknesses, and is going to rely a lot on Samus's ability to get the flank, to get the ult down onto the key members, and not get stuck in the Sejuani Thresh Renekton ultimate. And also on Jaeger to be able to killer instinct correctly without dying. I'm gonna say Michigan JV did not give me enough confidence in game 1 to look you in the eye and say, yes, I believe they can do that. Samus was out of place into the Vigard, and I get it, his Vigard's weird, but you really shouldn't be running into cages like that. I don't have the confidence. Crabs, yet again, they draft something that's front to back and it's easy to execute. And if we learned one thing from game one, it is that they can execute, Slayer.
Yeah, could have said better myself. I think this is a very good game for champions that love to play into teams that are stacked on top of each other. And Kai'Sa's low range can't stretch out their team comp that much. Malzahar needs to be close enough to get the ult off. And then I don't need to explain why Jax, Jarvan, and Rakan are going to be closely grouped up. The only way this comp works is if there are avenues for Royce to find big charms, there are avenues for Woohoo to dive back and get really good cataclysms. I'm gonna keep it simpler. If U of M JV can get to this Kog'Maw Hui reliably enough, they will win the game. If they can't, and they have to be forced to play front to back, they will lose. As we are
Oh,
replaying into being on Summoner's Rift. I guess we have a pause. I assume is what's going on, Caddy.
I love the replay. We're replaying the pause because we haven't seen it the first time. And I'm gonna take this moment to say that apparently our producer knows League better than us because he also mentioned that yet another champion with suppress is Warwick. And do you know what is the most upsetting part about that is I mained Warwick for like a year.
Oh
I
no.
should know he has a suppress.
Oh yeah. That you know, we're all learning. We're all learning today. That's the important takeaway. Oh yeah.
And
They
I
also
hope
yes. I'm glad Caddy pointed out as well because QSS used to get you out of these ultimates. It does not anymore. They took that away
QSS,
from
I
us.
believe, also used to get you out of Mordekaiser's basement.
Yes, it did. That one, that one I agree upon makes no sense. I think if you get ulted by Mordekaiser, man, you're stuck. I don't think you should be able to get out of it. But making suppresses uncounterable, it may be not the best decision, but that's why I don't work at Riot developing the game. Freak, I'm
That's the
blaming you,
only
man.
reason
Come
why.
on.
I don't know. Speaking of an evening of learning, I hope we learn soon why we're in a pause. We switched back to cameras, which means that Caddy's not convinced it is going to be a quick pause. It, I can promise. Oh, PC froze. That's just
Not
a
fun.
reset. That'll be pretty quick as long as they've got a decent PC. The real question is which jungle was it? Was it the Sejuani or the Jarvan? Because if it was the Sejuani, we can make really funny Freljordian ice freezing jokes.
Oh, that's true. That's a good point. Actually, Crab Radiant are they're all Freljord. They refuse to play a game without Freljord champions involved. So I guess if we go to game 3, are we expecting an Olaf or Tryndamere top? How many other am I forgetting other Freljordians champions?
Lysandra.
Lysandra? Yeah, damn, there's a lot of them. Which
And
part of the league lore space has the most champions dedicated to them by this point? That's a good trivia question.
I actively avoid league lore because the thing is, like, knowing 168 champions, what they do, the names of their abilities, and like who plays well into another takes up enough space in my brain. If I try to follow the lore that is constantly changing, I think my head might just explode. So,
That is very smart. You know what? Kudos.
and lore isn't important to play the game. Probably gonna get some pushback on that one. I agree that lore is important. I agree that there are plenty of people who spend a lot of time at Riot on the lore, but you don't need it to play the game. Maybe we need a functional spectator every now and again. All I'm saying is Riot might be putting some of their time into the wrong places here. We have a transition. We're in game. We're still paused in game, but I think that's just the lag catching back up for it. And we're at 4 seconds. We're back, and the answer is woohoo. So no Freljordian freezing jokes.
No Freljordian freezing jokes. I will say, your point about lore not mattering at all to the actual game is 90% factual because you forgot about one really small thing that Riot is trying to add more into the game, and that's those side quests that come online in 25 minutes if you are into a lore-centric matchup. So the examples to be given there are like, if Thresh kills Lucian past 25 minutes, he gets like an extra soul from killing Lucian. Or I think Hui has an interaction with Jhin, and then there's obviously the Rengar Kha'Zix one, where if Rengar kills Kha'Zix 1v1, it's like he gets extra stats on his W, I believe, and then Kha'Zix, I believe, used to get an extra evolution if he killed Rengar. So had to
And
point those. People
apparently,
forget about those all the time.
Yeah, and apparently there's also a 3 Queens quest that I've never heard of. So clearly I don't spice up my champions enough. That is what I'm learning. But we are just about hit a minute and a half, which, as we all know, means buffs spawn, which, as we all know, means that things start getting a little bit more interesting. And I want to highlight, we talked about Krabs' ability to get that deep vision. Look at where that ward is, Slayer.
Multiple wards. They've got one watching Woohoo on his red buff clear, and they'll have one if he passes down to his Raptors. So Mr. Drex can pick a lane to gank, honestly, that he will reliably not deal with a regank if he wants.
Here, can. We will see how this goes. The Raptors buff will catch Drex out as well. That did go down. And, okay, I guess we have time to emote on the top side now. That's the thing. More importantly, though, on this Malzahar, we are going to be looking out for that spell shield. It's a passive. It's annoying. It helps. We'll see how much it helps. And, all right.
Interesting. We see Royce jump in pre-level 2. Gets level 2 after jumping in, so it's like, hey, okay. I guess Rakan is kind of all about one ability for engage until he gets level 6.
Yeah, everything else is kind of superfluous. It's like, oh.
All right, Death Sentence lands onto Royce. Ignite over top as soon as that Grand Entrance to get back out, but that's going to really shut down a lot of the creativity for this really low-range bottom lane for UMJV.
That's the nice way of putting it. We were concerned about the range matchup. What we didn't mention was, I mean, I kind of glossed over how Rakan isn't one of the tankier engages, but Thresh is, and Thresh Hook is going to start hurting when it lands because Pomgo will have the damage to follow up on it, and there's not a good target for the Thresh Hook to land on in this bot side.
Certainly. As the lanes start to settle in a bit more, junglers finish up their full clears. We'll see where the paths go. I like that ward from Uper. We'll look for a reset. Bottom lane not very gankable for Woohoo on the flip side, so might just be a Scuttle Crab trade and not much else.
We'll see. As we start looking towards the neutral objectives, we're going to talk about wanting the handshake on them, but we're also going to talk about who wants what. And really, first dragon, I don't know what it is, which means it's one of the 2 that does not pop up on this overlay. And so I think, I mean, I'm a big proponent of first grubs mattering a lot, especially when you have the pushing power of a Renekton on your side. And hello, Jarvan.
Yeah. Woohoo thinking about a gank. Maybe we'll go for it now. Pomgo stepping up to get some damage on Aaron Yeager. They don't get the Grand Entrance knockup. Pomgo is still far too forward, though. None of the knockup's landing, and the Dark Passage will always bail out a pesky AD carry player over positioning, and you saw it live in air.
I've never heard the Thresh Lantern referred to that way, but it really is a beautiful bailout tool for a silly ADC, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's coming from an AD carry player, by the way, so I am the silly AD carry player.
And I'm a support main, so I'm the one going, get back here, you.
Yep.
What we are going to be looking for is, yes, the saving shield and returning ability that Thresh Lantern brings, but also, on the flip side, the engaging potential it offers. I'm charging forward, I'm going to drop it behind me, and suddenly there's somebody else with me. We'll see how it works. We will see what happens as this game develops. It's still 5 minutes. It's still early days, especially for Alchemist's Thresh.
Certainly is. A lot more quiet on the Rift. We already had a multitude of skirmishes resulting in kills by this point last game. Maybe I'm going to use my caster powers to speak it into existence as a going in ping is coming down from Woohoo. Void on this top side, is going to make an unfortunate time to go for a ward. Does have to expend the flash. This does not get the proc on the double dash for the slice and dice. So good summoner. Taken away from the top side for Crab Radiant, but it does allow Mr. Drex to grab that first dragon.
Notably, taking that dragon about 30 seconds earlier than he did last game means that instead of us saying, maybe he can contest Grubs if he wants to walk up there, there's no maybe to it. He can contest Grubs, and he's looking to contest Grubs. Very, very rare we see a jungler take both neutral objectives in the meta where it's at right now, but Drex is the man, and he is going to do it.
Yeah, and the win rate for teams that grab the first 3 grubs and first Drake is astronomical. And with the push power being in the favor of Crab Radiant, you see Trinity already roamed over. Void can also do the same thing. This is a huge wave that Uper has to answer. Mr. Drex, though, is a lot less healthier off, and we do see Samus does have the ultimate available on that Malzahar, the Super Suppress. I thought it was going to be a flash ult over that wall, but seems like JV Wolverine squad is content giving away both neutrals.
I think they were concerned about how few people they saw on the map. Trinity obviously was hiding in a bush, was off vision there, but so too was Alchemist. And Flash ult is great, probably gets you a kill, but if you walk into a thresh hook, you die in return. And
True.
maybe UMGV wised up a little bit from last game and went, maybe we can't afford to skirmish as much as we did and give over as many trades, because it just accelerated the carrying ability of Crabs last game.
Fair point, but if you become too lackadaisical, you will just slowly lose the game. So we'll see exactly when UMJV decide to start throwing punches, because like I mentioned, a lot of teams lose games when they give up first Drake and first grubs.
How much of that is because of the actual Drake and the actual grubs, and how much is because if you get first Drake and first grubs, that means basically all 3 of your lanes are pushing, which means basically all 3 of your lanes are winning, which in and of itself is more powerful. But that is for somebody else to answer. What we can answer right now is that ADCs have hit level 6. And so now Jaeger starts becoming a little less of a, I have to walk up to your face to hit you, and a little more of a kill threat, especially onto Palm Goat.
And on the flip side, Palm Goat becomes even more ranged with the living artillery. He can pick up farm if he needs to with it and do some decent damage. As you can see, Palm Goat already stepping up, trying to utilize his W added range. And you know, we highlighted the fact, hold on though, this is just an easy pick that I saw coming out of nowhere, but somehow Royce is able to survive long enough for the Spiraling Despair to take it. But it's the strong side stack for Crab Radiant that grabs himself a very good first blood onto their biggest scaling member.
Luckily enough, surviving just long enough to hit Jaeger with it when it explodes as well. Not sure that was the plan, but Drex very much more aggressive in the jungle this game because he can be. Early game Sejuani beats early game J4 pretty much any day of the week, especially with a team that is supporting you as much as Crab is supporting their jungle.
Yeah, we see Alchemist hit a good death sentence there, but was not prepared for there to be a jungler and a support on top of his head after hooking the Malzahar. Both teams trying to jockey for position around this dragon and the Scuttle Crab, but Dragon Scuttle Crab won't be here for a very much long time. That's the Grandmaster's Might pop for Yopper, forces out the Dominus, so a bunch of health gained back by Void, and they'll both just stat check each other with their ultimates and likely have to expend teleports to get back to lane.
And I think that's just the epitome of top lane islanding there, Slayer. That's kind of what it is and kind of what happens.
Oh. All right, I mean, this is the power thresh right into Rakan. That was a great charm and knock-up combination onto Palm Goat from Royce, but one lantern makes it completely irrelevant.
I mean, the good news, if you're UMGV, is that the lantern has a much longer cooldown than the Rakan Q engage. Not the Rakan ultimate engage, but that little dash and flip up that he does. So maybe if you have the pressure and you do it right, yeah, one gets lantern, but the next one won't.
We will have to see as this game is slowly but surely spiraling into Crab Radiant control. This is the lesser-known solo queue way to win yourself games. There's one kill in this one, but the gold lead is about 1,600 gold. It's because these farm leads are evolving in a lot of these lanes. You can see in the jungle and top lane in particularly, and the mid lane. We're starting to grab plates as well. Just the more, I guess the Gen Z term would be low-key way to stack yourself a gold lead to win a game.
At least you're pulling out Gen Z terms and not, is it Gen Alpha that's below me? I think it is, because those terms get concerning real fast. But second dragon up on the map, second grubs up on the map. Drex second dragon, Woohoo, second grubs, top lane hitting each other.
Yeah, I really like this adaptability from Mr. Drex, recognizing, hey, I was able to grab first early objectives. So what does this give me power to do? Well, he doesn't want to play. If he wants to play for dragon stacking, this is exactly what he does. He says, all right, nobody gets Void Mites, that's fine, but my team now is in position to potentially have a Chemtech Soul at 21 minutes if we can keep control of this game. And now you're going to force UMJV to respond. You'd hope to the third Drake take, but at the very most, the fourth one, or they're just going to give away a very powerful buff to Crab Radiant.
Indeed. And I believe, I'm trying to figure out what dragon it is because Dragon Tracker froze again, which means it's the other one. Does that make it?
Oh, hold on. Might have a Spout Despair Dank come across. The stun lock is down. Does Trinity have enough damage in the tank? It's the auto on the way to find it. But it's a kill nonetheless. Trinity 2-0. Seem like the superstar for this Crab Radiant roster.
And if you've got a superstar in mid lane, you put them on mid lane hard scaling carries, and that's what they did. Vygar game 1, Hui game 2. I believe still has not died yet this series. I believe he had a flawless game on the Vygar game 1. Oh,
what an angle for the hook to find there. Needle in a haystack. And what does it do? It forces Cleanse and the entire combo out from Royce, but it's a flash connect from Mr. Drex. He's going to find Aaron Yeager trying to creep out away from a dive that was inevitable. The roam over from Woohoo is just a little bit too late, and that means Trinity's going to find him with a full Blackfire Torch, nearly eviscerates his entire health bar, forces him to expend that coveted summoner, and that actually keeps on rolling as finally this game breaks open with kills. Good flash from Royce, has the turret aggro on top of the Thresh. It seems like it's going to be a trade, but the heal comes out from Royce to bait in Palm Goat. The unfortunate reality, though, is that the jungle is still in control of Crab Radiant, so the living artillery, a couple more Qs. The wave should come up soon. I really thought Royce would be dead by this point, and finally he will fall to a Q to the face from Trinity, who goes on a killing spree.
I also really thought Royce was going to be dead by there. Some phenomenal dancing, and it means that the rest of the team is here. Oh, Malzahar.
Yeah, Samus wanted to go for an ult, but recognized Mr. Drex can cancel it out of it with one single boar stance rush. And wow, did that just crumble for the Wolverines in an instant. They don't get the Malzahar ult. They let the Kog'Maw ramp up to lethal tempo, and things only got worse from there. 3-0.
I think what makes it even worse is that Malzahar did hit the R button. It just did not matter. He was already on his way to the gray screen when he did it. And I think you cast your crest just in a kill slayer because it was 1 kill, and now it's 8. And a 5,000 gold lead at 14 minutes. This game, turret plays just now fallen. I believe across the board, probably about 10 taken for the side of Crabs Radiant and 0 taken for the side of University of Michigan JV. And now it's time to start looking at how do they get back into this game, and this ain't it.
That's not how. This is not getting hooked by Thresh. Royce able to dash to Woohoo. Pops the quickness to try and just charm anybody that jumps on him, but the Severing Bolt lands from distance. It's Trinity once more. It's Woohoo having to run away from his blue side jungle again. Disaster striking in such familiar fashion over and over again for the UMJV squad.
I'm getting a little bit of deja vu from late game 1 in with Woohoo in his jungle, and Drax saying, this isn't your jungle, this is my jungle, and I'm going to counter jungle it. I don't believe that. But is 9 stacks ahead on the Moss Stomper Seedling, and is, a casual 25 CS ahead. Oh.
Aaron Yeager. Welcome to playing AD carry on a losing team, my friend. There was nothing he could have done to survive there.
Maybe if you get lucky, you find one, but that is less about Jaeger luck and more about Crab forgetting how to juggle turret aggro when 2 tanks are collapsing.
Yeah. Oh, and they're not done collapsing here. Ooh, shout out the Malzahar mini to tank the death sentence, but Kog'Maw's range is a wonderful thing when you're ahead. And there's the last shot of the living artillery. Will not find it, but I think this death sentence could get close. Just keep on clicking away, Samus.
That would have been like a hilarious death sentence if it hit, for the record.
Oh,
meanwhile, topside, they're 0-0-0.
Hummus, I refuse to get baited in by these two trading. I don't care. There is no kill threat in this lane until one of them pops ultimate. I literally have caster cursing live on air. in the moment. Yopper does end up getting out, and Void will actually rush back safely under their turret, so nobody still dies. Top laner still zeros on the board.
So there's no kill threat until one of them hits ultimate, but if both of them hit ultimate, it cancels back out the kill threat.
Well, you know how you can get the kill threat up? Bring more members to the top lane than you actually want. Teleport Nether Grasp to lock in Trinity. It took everything, ultimates, teleports, but Trinity falls for the first time in the series.
And that is a nice shutdown, don't get me wrong. I think that's probably about 400 gold off of a 5-0 and 2-way. But
you want to watch Pomgo get a kill with no abilities? This is no abilities. I mean, W counts, but it was just auto attacks.
I mean, this is the question of, you took down Trinity, which is absolutely huge. Between that, the Rift Herald, the turret you got, is an infusion of gold. Don't get me wrong. But you're still down 5,500 gold. You lost your ADC, who's now 0-4. And yeah, Trinity's a threat, but so too is Pomgo.
Oh, Alchemist is cooking on this Thresh. The classic Lantern mid-hook lands there, but it was onto a tanky-ish Jarvan. Man, Alchemist is really looking to cook for the flash hook land. But Samus will respectfully flash after, and that will push all of the Wolverines off of the Drake Pit, and we are still very much so in line for a 22-minute Chemtech Soul.
Which is terrifying, for the record, to see a Soul sweep taken at this point in the game. And I mean, at this point, production's giving us game updates on the other games that are happening. Because like I said, there's still the scenario. We end up with 4 teams tied at 2-3.
Well,
yeah, that scenario is fading by the minute and fading very, very quickly here, Slayer.
Yeah, certainly is. We'll see how much Crab Radiant push their luck, though. They are overextending to chase some of these kills.
What's fascinating is my brain was like, oh yeah, we're setting up for Baron, we're clearing vision, and we're this far ahead that we can take Baron, that makes sense. And then I looked at the clock and went, oh, it's 18 minutes, Baron isn't a thing right now.
And they already used Rift Herald to knock down the mid turret, so there's not even a Rift Herald to go take over there. There's nothing in the pit currently.
Yeah, not really. It's kind of empty, but it's okay because turrets are falling, and if you're UMJV, here's what you gotta do. Take the most worthless, gold-wise, not calling this player worthless, most worthless member, never mind.
Yeah, they might have a 4v3 here with none of the damage dealers from Crab Radiant. They're going to teleport the 5th member in. It's only Pomgo, who does flash away nicely, but he flashes into Uper, who gets the Counter-Strike stun down. Trinity has to step up and be the hero now. Will eviscerate Aaron Yeager at first. Nethergrass down onto Mr. Drex, but that's the tanky Sejuani, who could happily eat up all of this damage, but it's Uper to flash to find a 3-man Counter-Strike that sends all other flashes from Crab Radiant onto cooldown. It's Alchemist to fall, but it's finally a winning fight in the name of University of Michigan JV.
It only took 50 minutes of gameplay throughout this series, and here's the problem, Slayer. You get a shutdown, but Void's gonna get turret here because he's Renekton, and that's kind of what Renekton does, and you are still down 5,500 gold. The bounties you got did not neutralize this at all. And unfortunately, because that fight was taken about 19-15, Baron is not up on the map as a reward. Neither is the Dragon. That comes in 2.5 minutes time. So yes, you won the fight, but you don't get anything for the fight, for the most part. So you have to win another fight.
It's a small step forward, but there's a lot steeper footing coming your way if you are the JV squad for the Wolverines here. And the spot they might slip in is coming in about 2 minutes time. Yeah, Baron is on the Rift, but you can see how much Crab Radiant care about controlling every aspect of the bottom side of the map so they can get that Chemtech Soul that they feel is their win condition.
I mean, hard to not. Ironically enough, I would say UMJV's win con, taking a fight with Elder. And there comes a point where, yes, you don't want to give over a soul. But if we think this through, if you give over soul, if 5 minutes after that you have Elder, and if you have farmed up enough to where you have a realistic shot at Elder, that means far more than ending up on a 2 to 3 Drake.
Oh, they're going for Alchemist. They got the Nether Grass, the knockups, the stun lock. All that to kill off the support, but look at Goat's damage. He nearly makes it. That Woohoo pays the price for all those ultimates used on a support. About 10 HP separating those two storylines.
And if you're Alchemist, you're feeling pretty darn good that they just spent that much on you. Like,
Oh, yeah.
The highest sense of praise you can get as a support is when they invest everything in on you and your ADC is just like, hi, I'm still here and I'm still killing you.
This also feels good as a support player. Maybe feels bad, actually, as a support player. More for the Crab Radiant squad. Your support has more total deaths than the rest of your team combined.
That means he's meat shielding properly.
True. That's the reaction you have to have as a support player. Keep that mental.
Support players are happy if they go 1-0. The support player win con is my ADC is still alive. Regardless, notably, I was talking before the winning fight for UMGV broke out, that you take the most gold worthless member of your team, you split push, you get them farm, you get them gold, you get them ahead, especially with that being Kai'Sa. That is now off the table because Kai'Sa is now 1 in 5, which means that how much gold she's worth has reset, and now she's worth enough that you don't want her to die.
Hummus, can we talk about this Kai'Sa build, by the way? This is insanity. I've never seen this. Blade of the Rune King Collector? Yeah, I don't... That is not optimal in my mind. I don't mean to be mean, but...
Optimal Kai'Sa build is the build that gets you to your evolved abilities the quickest.
That one's only got to evolve Q, right? I mean, you can't get an E evolution off that.
No way. Maybe with the Berserkers, you're kind of close on the attack speed evolution?
Well, close only matters in horseshoes and hand grenades, and we're about to see an absolute explosion of a team fight. Everybody's on top of everyone, but it's the Renekton that is absolutely strong. Mr. Drex is too much to be dealt with, and this time it's the front line getting it done. It's a triple over to Void. He has pent-up potential, and he's hunting for it with a quadra kill. Youper, the only one going to cancel him out from it. Are they going to chase, or are they going to play for the dragon? They're going to play valiantly and try to get the Chemtech soul secured, but Mr. Drex and Void are too much for UMGV to deal with.
And we talked a little bit in Game 1 about how good of trigger control Void had, in that, I don't know if you remember it, Slayer, it was the Camille holding off on killing a 10 hit point Jinx. You know, like, we talked about that?
Yep.
The level of control it takes to go, I could get a Penta, and said, I'm going to get soul and I'm going to play for the team, is not something you see a lot in top laners. And I'm really, really glad we are, because Void could have just as easily said, you know what, Drex, you get a dragon by yourself. I'm going to try and chase after this Penta kill. Ironically, Youper did find a turret while they were draking. So there is a little bit of something there, a little bit of an extra shutdown. However, you want to look at the gold. It closed by a little bit. It's only about 5,000 now, not 5.5. But the vast majority of that gold going to be on Youper 3-0-4, the highlight of this UMJV team. And Kog'Maw just ulting bushes, because why not?
Yeah, use it as scout vision, and now those team fights where Goat and Trinity, if they had a bit more health, they could take over. They'll have those resistances with the Chemtech Soul. And now you also are playing exactly into Renekton's wheelhouse. I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit here, Hummus. Told you this. I told everybody at home, this is a beautiful Renekton game because everybody wants to be on top of everybody. And now this Renekton is going to be 3 items after a back. No chance you ever kill him, and he might just get a pentakill on the second try.
We'll see. Or maybe it'll be a quadra into a Baron, because at 25 minutes, Baron is in. Renekton, Void not having the teleport, but if Void can keep Youper busy, that's a free Baron. Because at this point, if UMGV wants to take a fight, it has to be with Youper. Nobody else has the items. Nobody else is strong enough to take that fight. Opting not for the Baron. We could have made it spicy. We could have forced it. Instead, we're going to play Ring Around the Buff Pit.
That Radiant have showed a couple of times in this series that they are very resolved in playing clean competitive League of Legends. And that's why they aren't risking 50-50s on these Barons. They're waiting to see if they can find any picks, or Void can win his matchup on the side lanes. He is a level down. I believe he's still yet to reset off that gold that he got from the kills, but maybe I'm mistaken.
I don't know off the top of my head. I could do math, but I'm not quick enough at math to do it while I still have to talk. So we will see. However, Uper has recalled.
No.
Uper's heading up.
They had Woohoo. They caught him with the Glacial Prison, and that's the only pick they needed. Hummus. Now this Baron is basically guaranteed, unless UMJV have a prayer steal, or they just kill them before the Baron goes down. But they teleport Void in. 5 versus 4, and the stronger team with the 5 stack. The Death Sentence is going to land onto a Cleanse Samus. Alchemist will not take the second part of that hook, though, and go into the team. And now the Wolverines realize they have no chance at stopping the Baron play, as it goes over 5 banners in purple to Crab Radiant.
Crab Radiant, you said it. They're patient. They're playing clean League of Legends. They waited for Void to have the teleport back up to push the wave. And now if you look at the wave management, top is pushing, bot is pushing, mid will get ushered in by a couple of folks there. And it's pushing now too. And when you are wearing purple, when you have Baron, the name of the game is get those waves pushing and lay siege. Recalls coming through, item completions coming through, notably the Rabadons for the Hui. Also notably the Gwynsus for Palm Goat that I thought we were going to see on Jaeger by now. We have not. And Elder's up in 2 minutes, so Baron won't be up by the time Elder still is, but a lot can be gotten before we get there.
Maybe a pick play coming across for Royce here. Looks for an engage with a perfect brunt from Algo as he flays him out of his grand entrance. Uper wants to go for Pomko, but he flashes to safety, so the Kog'Maw can absolutely cook. But Trinity is caught on the other side by the Nethergrass. They execute the Hui, but watch this Kog'Maw just ravage the entirety of whatever stands in front of him. Pomko gets a double kill. You can't leave the Kog'Maw up and free firing, and Mr. Drex doesn't want to let Uper get out with that low health bar. Glacial Prison, the healing off the Sundered Sky, and a hop to safety might be good enough. The Flash Death Sense will go wide from Algus, but Mr. Drex, turrets just feel like a tickle on his cheek. They don't pick up the kills, but they're going to keep this push down mid lane with Baron running.
Void was pushing top, by the way. Recall was like, I got little legs, wait for me. Crab, not that they got punished for it, but that was perhaps the first over-emphatic overstep that they've had this game of really hunting for Uper, and honestly, I get it. 3-0-4, man is the shining star, and if you kill Uper, you kill UMJV here.
Teleport Trinity in to make sure they can get this tier 2 turret down. And it's becoming the question of when will UMJV step up and try and make one last fight to level this game out, because they are bleeding into their base by this time.
Yep, Elder up in a minute. Baron
Good
still
call.
up. The recall gonna be coming through. But we got wolves, guys. UMJV got wolves. We're good.
That's the win. Come on, guys. That's an endangered species. I don't actually appreciate you taking the wolves.
Oh, my bad. It's fine.
No. They're definitely not endangered in League of Legends, I'll tell you that. They respawn at rapid rate.
Scuttle will get taken by UMJV. So Vision of Elder is currently theirs. And that's something. Vision is half the battle if you're in an even battle. Unfortunately for them, they are down 9,500 gold. And yeah, you can set up Vision for Elder all you want to. And all that really lets you go is see, yep, they're taking Elder. And as Elder spawns on the map, if I can get this in real quick before the team fight starts, welcome to everybody from the Blue Otter League, raiding with 31. Pleasure to have you all here. Thank you, Wookie, for the raid. Always a pleasure working with you, man.
Oh,
And now we got a team fight.
Yeah, flank coming out here from Royce, trying to get some big charms down, but it's only onto the frontliners, and look at Void's health bar, because it's not depleting. Everybody on the Wolverines roster is. They don't get to Trinity, they only find Palm Goat, but there's too many Fed members on Crab Radiant to deal with, and they get eviscerated. And ace the game, the series, the season, moving to the postseason for Crab Radiant in 2-0 fashion.
Void teleporting instead of walking. His legs hurt a little bit from taking that fight. The game may have lasted a minute longer than game 1, but arguably even in much more dominant fashion was this one won by Crab. And let's all take a minute and a quick moment of silence to acknowledge that we are watching UMJV's season go up in flames as this Nexus crumbles. It was a good season from them.
Good season, not good enough. Crab Radiant were simply the better team today, and they showed it in both of our games. Once again, another early game where things are up in the air, but once Crab Radiant can start stacking together, fluently getting their team fight strategies going, they are unstoppable.
Indeed, they are. As we start looking towards the post-game breakdown here, wow, that was fast. We were talking about even. Last game was even until 19 minutes. This one kind of only even until about 9. After that is about a 2,000 gold lead that held. And you highlighted so well the damage output discrepancy in the last game. Do you like this one any better now that Kog'Maw actually carried as an ADC?
I do think there's nobody to block damage this time around, right? So you could see that the Malzahar gets cheap damage off his stupid E. They can just bounce onto people. And the Kai'Sa has damage. And then Uber is actually the one performer for, Michigan's JV squad that I was impressed with. Ahead on the Aurora, was quietly 3-0 on this Jax before he met the rest of Crab Radiant's team. And things went a little bit different when that happened.
What Slayer is endeavoring to say is a phenomenal solo player, who was unable to make those solo early game leads translate into later game victories. As we look ahead to playoffs, which start next week on October 24th, reminder, there were 6 teams in each division. Top 4 make playoffs. What I can tell you, because production has been doing wonders at keeping an eye on the other games, is obviously Crabs Radiant moves to 3-2 on the season with the win. Michigan JV drops to 1-4. The other 2 games we had going on tonight, We Love Solbert versus XG Riders. That is still going, and that is 1-1 right now. Depending on how that goes, if XG Riders loses Game 3, they will drop to 3-2, where, as we know, Crabs Radiant is at. And then at that point, it comes down to the tiebreaker with XG 1 off the head-to-head. So looking at that across the board, Crab can sit pretty comfy knowing they are a 3rd seed going into this, and they can be proud of that. It could have been 4th. It could have been worse. The other game on the night, Dorado Gaming versus 0 Point, still in Game 2. Don't know how that one's going to end, but Division 2, playoffs are looking pretty set in stone, and they feature Crabs Radiant for sure.
They certainly do, as one of the dark horses that will have to threaten against the two teams that have been very hard to knock down, which are Dorado Gaming and Gentle Hearts Gaming. 2 orgs that I know always field very, very competitive rosters at this level. Those are the 2 teams you're going to have to look out for going into the postseason. Crabs Radiant looked to be the king of tonight's broadcast, the king of the close for the regular season, because that does it, folks. 5-week sprint. That's all we had here for Mythical League Fall 2024 split. When you see us next time, we will be in that 8-bracket playoff matchup that you heard Hummus just so eloquently point out. Big shout out to Hummus. It was a pleasure getting to cast alongside you and our producer, Caddy, behind the scenes, not only going through pauses, throwing us up on the screens when we want to be, but also the fun facts about all the side quests that you can get in League of Legends. Next week is where you're going to want to be here. Thursday night, we kick off the playoffs. Make sure to stay locked to Risen for all the other leagues that run throughout the weekend. And most importantly, come back here on Thursday. Until then, enjoy your weekend. It's coming right around the corner, and we'll see you when we see you. Take care.